Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I am going to make barbecue baked beans. I just opened up a can of barbecue baked beans and I forgot. I had not had baked beans in such a long time and I was like, ooh, I missed these. So I was thinking I have a ton of beans, dry beans, and I've never made homemade barbecue baked beans before. So I thought that would be something fun and interesting to do today. Now, you can use an Instapot, a pressure cooker. You can have the beans soak overnight. I, however, am going to do the boil method, which is a little faster, and I do that all the time with beans. It's really good if you haven't really planned ahead and soaked beans. I'd like to be eating these beans later today for dinner, but there's lots of options that you can do. Now I am using navy beans. Now I've never done this before, so this is just what I've seen on the internet, that you can use basically any dried bean. I saw a recipe where they used pinto beans, they used pink beans, they used the navy beans. I have pinto beans, but I like to save those for when I make refried beans. And I have a lot of navy beans, so that's what I'm going to use today. You can also use canned beans, which is a shortcut, but I like to save my canned beans, so we're going to use some dried beans. So to start with, this is just peak navy beans. I'm just going to be using this entire bag. Now that seems like a lot, but I'm going to eat on this for probably the next week, and then whatever's left over will go into the freezer. My husband is not a huge bean person. He might eat a little bit, but mostly it will be myself. But if you guys have been watching me a while, you know that that's what I like to do. I like to make large quantities, eat on it for about a week, and then whatever is left over will go in my freezer, and then it's quick, convenient meals for another time. Now, this will probably be the base of most of my meals for the next week. This might be a main dish or a side dish. There's a bunch of things that you can do. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Now, all I did was pour the beans inside the pot. If you guys have cooked with dry beans before, you know the drill. And I picked through them. I didn't find anything suspect. And then we're just going to put some water in this. Now I filled the pot about halfway full, and again I am just going to do the boil method. And all you do is you fill the pot about halfway or so, depending upon how many beans you're using, how big your pot is. You're going to let them boil for a while, for a long while, a couple hours maybe, and then you're going to let them sit in the pot with the stovetop turned off, and this makes the method a little bit quicker. You can also cook them in a crock pot, which is my personal preference, but since I'm home today, then I don't mind doing it this way. Okay, I've got the stovetop on high, I've got the lid on, and we're going to get these boiling. Okay. As you guys can see, this is pretty steamy. We're going to open this up, and we've got beans boiling. I am going to turn it down just a little bit. As you can see, I've got it on high, and I'm just going to turn it down just a little bit, just so that it doesn't get completely unruly. The beans are still at a roaring boil or rolling boil or however you guys call it, and I've turned them down and they are starting to get soft already, and it's only been about 20 minutes. Alright, now that it's been boiling for a little while, I am adding some water. I already added one of these in there, and I'm going to add this one, and that's just because you don't want it to get too low on water as it's repeatedly boiling. And we're going to get the lid back on here, but I'm going to give this a stir real quick. As you guys can see, it's starting to come along. And the water is dark, but we're going to drain out that water after they're all done cooking anyway. And we're going to get the lid back on. We're going to let these cook longer. So while the beans are cooking, I am making the sauce that will go with the baked beans. In this container is ketchup, yellow mustard. I use Sweet Baby Ray's buffalo wing sauce. It said you could use hot sauce, but this is what I had on hand. It also said brown sugar, but I am using white sugar. It also said molasses or maple syrup. I only had like the fakey maple syrup, so I used what I had of that. And then it said Worcestershire sauce, and it said onion. I don't have onion, so what I'm using instead is onion soup mix. And then these two things right here are frozen peppers, just multicolored peppers that I cut up and put in my freezer. And then I've got a bunch of different seasonings in here, and I'm going to show you guys what seasonings I have. So I used paprika, I used minced onion, we used garlic powder, although you could use fresh garlic or minced garlic, however you guys like to do it. I used some cumin, some salt, and I also used the Southwest Chipotle seasoning blend instead of the cayenne. This is just a mix of spicy seasonings that I had on hand, and I just mixed together because I didn't have enough of each one. And I use this also to make my Cajun seasoning. Now, if you really want this to be spicy, you could use a Cajun seasoning, and I have like a homemade Cajun seasoning that I just looked up. But I also have a store-bought Cajun seasoning. This one is just from the Dollar Tree, and I've never used it before, but it's supposedly really good for like red beans and rice. But if you really want your baked beans to be spicy, this would be another good option. Something else that you can do with your baked beans that I saw online was use bacon grease or crumbled bacon. I actually don't have any bacon, so I will not be using any of that. But I do have some drippings from some drumsticks that I roasted in my crock pot, and so I will use a little bit of that juice to go in there. And there's a bunch of different recipes out there, so it just kind of depends what kind of baked beans that you're looking for. I will be baking my beans in the oven, but it's good to get all the sauce and everything all together, so then all you do is pour that on top of your beans before you put them in the oven. Although I do have the beans still cooking, and they still need a little bit longer, and we're going to check them for softness. I just checked the beans. They actually are soft, and it's only been about an hour and a half or so, but I want them to be super, super soft. Just another personal preference. I could totally eat them right now and they would be fine, but I am going to let them boil a little bit longer, and then I'm going to let them sit, and then I will mix them with the seasoning, and then I will bake them, and they will be all ready for eating. Okay guys, so I turned off the stovetop, and these have been sitting for about 2 hours, and they are all ready. And then I'm going to drain them and mix the seasoning and bake them, and they will be all good to go. Here are the beans all drained, and as you guys can see, they are super soft. So I had them boil for about an hour and a half, and then had them sit in the hot water for about 2 hours while I was just running around doing some stuff. And then here is the stuff that I am going to mix into it to make it baked beans. Here they all are. I am just putting them in this big glass Pyrex bowl just because that's what I'm going to store them in. So instead of dirtying any more dishes, and I am going to put the seasoning and stuff on top, give it a good mix, and bake it in this. Okay, we've got it all mixed together. I just tasted it. I think it is really yummy, really on point. It's got a little bit of spice to it. I think it tastes pretty good, considering I've never made it before. And this is a huge thing of baked beans, and I just never made them before, and it ended up being really easy. Now I'm going to let them cook in the oven for a little while, and of course you would probably want to put this in a flat dish, but I just like to save myself a little bit just putting it in here. And everything's already cooked, so again, bacon would be really good in this, or some ground beef of some kind would be really yummy as well. But as it stands, this is just a vegetarian version that I made, vegetarian or vegan, because it has no animal products at all, but you could, make it with meat in it as well. I think bacon crumble would be really good too. So I'm going to go ahead and get this in the oven. So I just pulled my baked beans out. They were in the oven at 350 for about an hour. And as you can see, they're nice and crispy, and they are all ready to go. This has nothing to do with cooking baked beans or anything like that. I just wanted to show you guys, I'm cleaning up from my baked beans, and I was also making a cake and, just keeping the kitchen busy, and the sink is stinking a little bit. So I want to show you guys, this is how I clean my sink frugally and environmentally friendly. I sprinkled some baking soda inside the sink on both sides, and then I'm going to use vinegar to clean the sink. So it cleans it, disinfects, and also gets rid of any smells. I'm using this LA's Totally Awesome Streak-Free Cleaning Vinegar, and I actually got this from the Dollar Tree for $1, and it is 64 fluid ounces. I've never used this before, but we're going to give it a try. You could also put lemon peels or lime peels or orange peels. See, and how it's fizzing. We can put a little bit more in here because this stinks pretty bad. There we go. Now it doesn't fizz as much as regular vinegar, but that's okay. We're going to let it sit for a little while, and then we will rinse it out and show what it looks like. So those are the baked beans that I made, and they turned out really good. And the only things that I paid for, of course, I paid for the seasonings, and all that kind of stuff, but the beans I got for free, and the peppers I got for free, and the sugar I actually got for free from a food pantry as well. So very minimal ingredients, everything I had on hand. The only thing is it called for onion, and I didn't have any onion on hand. I will put in the description box below the ingredients that I used, but all I did was I looked up homemade baked beans, and there's a bunch of different varieties that you could do if you like it a little spicier or a little more southern or what have you. But I think it turned out really good, and I've never made them before, and it was easy, and I just woke up this morning and was like, I want to make baked beans, and I happen to have all the stuff on hand. So just remember to use what you have and to get creative. And I like bulk cooking because I'm not that big of a fan of cooking. So then if I have stuff already ready to go, then it's a lot less effort. And especially if you have a family to feed, you can use those baked beans as a main staple for a meal or as a side dish. And they also, things like that freeze really well. Please consider subscribing, like and comment below. Let's get to know each other. Follow me on Instagram, The Frugal Life with Mercedes. And until next time, guys, bye.